to be said for the first time. Nigel Farage has announced his official return to the Brexit fray this morning. Writing in the Daily Telegraph, the former leader of UKIP says it would be negligent to stand by and watch MPs wreck Britain's bid to leave the European Union. And he joins me now. Welcome to you, Nigel Farage. I mean, what you're saying is you're preparing to stand in the European elections, but actually we're not going to be having any European elections in this country.
There were lots of things that weren't going to happen that have happened over the course of the last 2 years. The position, Adam, is very simple. You know, my New Year's resolution was to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. The best, of course, is that 498 MPs voted for Article 50, which says we negotiate a withdrawal agreement, but if that doesn't go through, we leave on WTO terms. I mean, that is the law of the land right now. If that holds, I will be delighted, because we'll be out, and you know what? We'll be an independent, self-governing nation.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what it was about. But my fear is that our political establishment, including our Prime Minister, because, you know, when she spoke at Florence, she talked about this deep and special partnership. Yeah. So I fear that the House of Commons is going to effectively overturn that Brexit. And to me, the most likely outcome of all of this is an extension of Article 50. If Article 50 gets extended for more than 3 months, we will be contesting the European elections.
But no one is saying that's going to happen. In fact, there are ways, as you well know, because you're a member of the European Parliament, of getting round this and simply rolling over your membership or whatever.
Well,
but you're saying you think it's quite likely now that we're going to have European elections.
Well, it's possible. Firstly, it's possible that we get European elections. And secondly, you know, it's the worst-case scenario, but there could be another referendum. And what I do know is that the Remain side are well-funded, well-organised, they're getting ready for a second referendum. It would be negligent of the Eurosceptics not to do so.
OK, now the next question is, you're not a member of UKIP anymore, are you?
No, I'm not.
And the way you get elected is by being on a list, a party list. So if you're serious about getting re-elected to the European Parliament, you're going to have to find a party to stand for, aren't you?
That is absolutely right, and that is work in progress.
So you'll be rejoining UKIP?
I think that's now impossible, sadly. I think UKIP has gone down a route that makes it unsalvable. So no, it'll have to be a new vehicle, and that is work in progress.
And what would it be called?
Well, as I say, that's work in progress. I mean, there are lots of political parties out there that one could sort of pick up and use right now. There are constant new applications going in. No, I'm working on it. I mean, there will be a vehicle ready. My point is this. You know, if suddenly this was sprung upon us, if a European election was sprung upon us, or if a second referendum was sprung upon us, if we weren't ready, we'd be in a very bad place.
Now, you are a patriot. I think you'd see yourself as a patriot. And,
I would.
And Dad's Army fan and other things like that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Now, just let me put it to you that if we're not ready to leave, what on earth is wrong in delaying for a few months?
Well, and that may well become the argument. You know, that may well become the argument. I personally think it's a total failure of government that during 2.5 years we've not got ourselves ready to leave, we're not fit and proper to do it. I don't want an extension of Article 50 because I fear that once you kick the can down the road once, you do it again, and a second referendum comes into that gap. Look, what I want
is you'd actually quite like to carry on being a member of the European Parliament.
I've been there.
It gives you an election.
Do you know,
office.
I've been there for 20 years, and I'd be very happy not to go back. Look, Adam, I want us to leave the European Union, become an independent country, and then my role in politics is over. This is what I came into it to do. Now I fear we're on the verge of it being betrayed. I'm not going to stand by and watch this happen.
I do want to ask you about that because, you know, one of the reasons why you left UKIP was because of its moving closer to Tommy Robinson of the EDL. We've had those very nasty incidents outside Parliament involving...
I've been involved in some of them.
I know, MPs and others.
Yeah.
And isn't there a risk if you run around talking about betrayal and all the rest of it that you are saying to unsavoury elements, you know, get stirred up, get on the streets?
No, that's exactly the reason for getting a political party ready. Rather than people going out onto the streets and being violent, let's do it democratically through a political party. And, you know, whatever criticisms were made of me in all the years running and leading UKIP, we never allowed that violent fringe to ever be a part of it. And this is why democracy works. Democracy works because it gives you a mechanism to let off steam without resorting to violence.
So you would never say to people, take to the streets?
I would say to people, peaceful protest is absolutely fine, but anything beyond that is just plain wrong.
If Parliament takes control, as people are saying, and works through the options, and comes out with something which takes Britain out of the political structures of the European Union, including, the European Parliament, that surely would be democracy in action as well, wouldn't it?
Well, I think what's frustrating, Adam, is this. Every single leading player on both the Leave and Remain side in that referendum said a vote to leave means we are leaving the single market and the customs union. It could not have been clearer. And what I see with these cross-party talks that are now going on is a move towards, well, they talk about the Norway model, but actually what's being discussed here is worse than Norway, because it wouldn't just be single market rules, it would be customs union membership as well. We'd be Norway without the fish. So that is certainly not what people voted for. And, people argue, what did the Brexit vote mean? It meant leaving the political structures of Europe.
But the counter-argument to that is always people didn't vote to be poorer.
I know.
Well, it is a counter-argument.
I know, and we heard it about the exchange rate mechanism. And we heard it about the euro.
Putting out barriers
and they were wrong.
Trading with our biggest trading partners,
we're not putting up
which
barriers.
is what coming out of the single market
we're not putting up barriers. We're bringing down barriers across the world.
Would actually make people poorer, wouldn't it?
No, we're going to make food cheaper. We're going to make clothes cheaper. We're going to re-engage with the Commonwealth and many other parts of the world that we've effectively turned our backs on. We will be a freer trading Britain outside this protectionist club with its added air of authoritarianism. I'm absolutely certain we are doing the right thing. It's just that Parliament doesn't quite believe in it.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's get the thoughts now of the MP, Westminster MP, Conservative MP Shailesh Vara. You're putting out or supporting a new thing called a better deal, a better future for Britain and its relations with Europe. Is there much you disagree with that Nigel Farage has had to say?
Actually, I have to say I agree with much of what Nigel said, and I think it's important that we recognise 17.4 million people voted in the biggest democratic exercise in our country's history, and it was made absolutely clear, as Nigel says, by all the leaders of the referendum campaign that this was a one-off and the decision would be binding. And to the Remainers, I would say that their own leaders, the then Prime Minister David Cameron, former Prime Ministers Tony Blair, John Major, Nick Clegg, and it's all out there on social media. They can see the video clips of the interviews that you and others did of these people. They said the results of this referendum must be binding. And I think that our global...
they had to say that because legally it wasn't.
No, they said it because it was true, and they meant it. But sadly, they didn't, from their point of view, they didn't expect to lose. And it would be absurd if we now had a second referendum, because at what point do we stop having referendums? Right. If the other side were to win this time, does it become best of 3, best of 5?
Nigel is looking for a party. Sounds like he'd fit into your Conservative Party, do you think?
Well, we have certain rules and regulations, and I am happy to put Nigel in the right direction, and he's a seasoned politician, and, if he fulfills our criteria, we'd be happy to have him on board.
I don't think Mrs May's Conservative Party would have me, but maybe a Conservative Party that was led by somebody who was a committed Brexiteer.
I mean, Boris Johnson's making a bid today. Would you like to be in Boris Johnson's Conservative Party?
I would just like to see a Conservative Party led by somebody who really believed in Britain.
I think it is important. Nigel is right there, that we need to believe in Britain. We need to believe in the United Kingdom. This deal that we've got on the table right now, Adam, has been negotiated on the basis of fear. People who can't see beyond Europe. If you look at all the economic data, the economic progress is going to be in the countries outside the EU in the decades ahead.
Yes, but it's economic progress from a much smaller base of our economic relationships with them. So, actually, a few percentage points in relation to our trade with Europe are worth a lot more than actually a doubling in our trade with some of these other countries.
Well, no, if we stay locked in this unending backstop in the customs union, we will be tied to EU rules and regulations. But if we're freed from that, then we can do free trade deals with China, India, USA, whatever.
Yeah, you say can or could. I mean, the reality...
We could do, and we could do it successfully.
The reality is, if we leave without an agreement, we'll actually be leaving a lot of current trade deals with a lot of these countries that you say you want to do trade deals with.
It would be very easy to do deals with these people, because at the moment the EU...
Well, it will be.
The EU has... Adam, the EU has deals with a lot of these countries, and we would be happy to look at those deals again. And I can tell you this, the deals that the UK would make with these countries aren't going to be hugely different.
I promise you, I can see the aspiration that you have, but I've been talking to people like you, and I've been talking to people from other countries for 2 years now, and I've said, okay, where are these great, fantastic deals that are going to be good for our British economy? And no one has been able to point to any firm example.
Let me tell you, I have been talking to people as well from other countries, non-EU countries, and they are saying, if you lock yourselves into the customs union, whereby the tariff rules are made by the EU, you are going to make it difficult for yourselves. And Woody Johnson, the ambassador of the USA, has said, if the United Kingdom is stuck in the customs union, it'll be difficult to form a deal with
We
Europe.
already have extremely good trading relations
we can have
with the
better
United
ones.
States.
Actually, you mentioned...
And Germany, which is a member of the European Union, has very good trading relations with a lot of these countries that you say we want to trade with.
You mentioned the USA. Let me just say, the USA trades with the EU on WTO rules.
No, it doesn't actually.
It does. It does. As far as goods are concerned.
It's got 60-side protocols.
The House of Commons Library. The House of Commons Library.
Talk about WTO terms. There are almost no countries that actually trade on WTO terms.
That is not true.
They all have side agreements.
The House of Commons Library has said that there are countries such as the USA, Argentina, China, Australia, New Zealand,
which we also have side protocols, right?
We may have side protocols,
exactly.
but they do trade on WTO. No, we do trade on
WTO terms.
We are trading on WTO.
You're wrong,
Adam. You're wrong, and I will send you the research from the House of Commons Library. And do you promise that you will read it out on the programme?
I'll look at your research.
And you'll read it out. But the House of Commons Library says.
I'm simply saying that
you're saying that you're not going to read out what the House of Commons Library says.
Of course, we report that. It is a chimera to say that most of the world trades on WTO terms. They do not.
Australia trades with the EU on WTO rules. The Prime Minister of Australia has said that 100 billion
plus side protocols.
100 billion Australian dollars worth of trade is done by...
WTO rules are the basis for what... For
basis, exactly, but you need further protocols.
But here's the argument, Adam. If you say we have a good trading relationship with the USA, which indeed we do, based on WTO terms, yes, with add-ons over time, of course, why is everybody terrified of trading with the European Union on WTO terms? What's the problem here?
Because we're that close to it. I mean...
and we could
the United States,
we could apply,
Canada,
we could apply to the WTO the day we leave, and say we're going to go, and we could carry on.
Just to give you an example, Canada does not trade with the US on Canada terms because it's its neighbour and the extent of its economic involvement is much greater.
Yes,
as is our economic involvement for quite obvious geographical reasons with the European Union.
That's changing, Adam. That's changing.
So the analogy is in fact to have a Canada-style relationship with the EU, similar to what Canada has with the US, and that's not permitted in WTO terms.
But let's look at the big picture, Adam. 10 years ago, 50% of our overseas trade was with Europe. That figure is now about 38%. The world
40%,
is the world.
Yeah, still quite a lot. Still the biggest bloc.
Let's not split hairs. Let's look at the global trends.
I'm not splitting hairs.
Let's look at the global trends. You know, the point about Brexit is we are looking ahead. We're not looking backwards.
Absolutely.
We're looking to the world as it goes forward. And being free...
Can I just say one point?
My point is it's aspirational. Okay. You're walking away from what you've got onto an aspiration, which you might be right on.
Can I just say, as far as the business community is concerned, there is a rich irony here, is that whilst we accept that there'll be short-term difficulty if we were to go out on WTO rules, the irony is that the business community, no self-respecting businesswoman or man would go into a negotiation and tell the other side, I'm taking no deal off the table. Yet the United Kingdom, let me finish please, the United Kingdom is engaged in the biggest trade deal, biggest business deal of our history, and yet the business community is asking us to do precisely what they wouldn't do. And you need to have no deal on the table because it makes sure that we get a better deal. Nobody really wants to have no deal.
Honestly,
but by having it on the table, we will get a better deal because the other side fears no deal as much as we do.
Listen, with 10 weeks to go, it's a bit late to start talking game theory about all this, isn't it?
I mean, these things always go to the wire.
The fact is, your Prime Minister, the leader of your party, and your government has been negotiating for 2.5 years. And actually, they came to an agreement which has just been rejected by the House of Commons. So to now start talking about the brilliant way in which we're going to negotiate with the European Union, I mean, you know, the truth is
where there's the political will, you can do anything in a short amount of time.
I mean, I think Nigel will agree with me. The European Union has a set of rules. And basically for us, the decision is at what level we hook up with those rules.
But the one thing that changes all of this is that at the moment we have full regulatory alignment. And I think the real frustration is that this Prime Minister never sought a genuine free trade agreement. And the way you get a genuine free trade agreement is you announce you're leaving on WTO terms. There'll be